Okay, hello everybody. I'm gonna talk about ponds. Okay, hello everyone. I'm gonna talk about ponds. It will be as part of a broader topic of water resource management. I chose to do it this way because you're here for a food forest or forest garden, course or whatever, and this way you can see how everything ties together, because the ponds that people have in their gardens, they could also be part of the forest garden. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, everybody should have paper in front of them, or at least close by. If you want. Okay. Okay. We spread them around. Yeah, just spread it around. It's one for every 4 or 5 people. That's fine.
Okay, so we need a bigger
okay.
marker.
Gergely.
How many? I would like every small team or whoever has paper in front of them to think about this and write down.
So it's 5 people
can,
in one team,
yeah.
So you can work together with the people who you sit with.
Write down top
manage
3
our
things.
resources? Why do we need?
Yeah, 3 of you can use one paper. So you can make little teams and.
It's not written like this, but
Okay.
efficiency, I would say, of the resources.
What we are writing.
Efficiency. Well, of the resources.
Okay.
But you can write more. No, I meant that this is just a point. Anyway, we can elaborate. This is just the point.
Let's write it down. Like this is. I would put it like as a brief,
Too many.
and then we can like put the idea.
Everybody finished? Okay. So let's just go around the room and see what people have come up with.
There's not unlimited amounts, so there's a fixed amount of water we have on the earth.
That's right.
It is required by all life forms and by all organisms. We cannot live without it, or plants and animals cannot live without it. And it's often in very many places it's not available, or in certain time periods it's not available.
That's right. So if you have the same one, you can just skip it and add whatever you have in addition to that.
Okay, so we thought about that it is good for checking the quality of the water around. Like if we manage like our own pond, then we know like what kind of quality. Maybe the soil is also the quality around the area, so we can check it from the water.
Actually, that's a great point, because if you have your own water system, then you can control what goes in and out of it.
Then they set, I think,
Okay.
the rest.
Next.
Also, we cannot.
But we are going around.
Okay. The round continues here, you know.
He wasn't the first, so no.
Groundwater.
Same level always. Same level from.
It's from your country. Yeah, but you bought that.
Okay, do you guys hear that? So she mentioned groundwater to maintain the healthy levels of groundwater. Or if it's depleted, you can refill it. Okay. Next group. Do you have anything different than what they've had so far? Okay, that's fine. Yes. Okay, so in the dry weather they need, plants need water, and if we don't have it in the dry weather, then we need to manage our water resources to make it available to them. Otherwise, they'll just dry up and die. Okay. No? Okay.
We have the same, but also thought about the need of managing because of the increasing pollution, like because of the industrial agriculture and etc. So that's something that has to be managed.
Yes, the runoff actually, and yeah.
Okay, we want our garden to be something like a sponge. Like the water we will gain from the sky, it will not go away or to become groundwater, but like keep it in a landscape.
Yes.
And as our colleague mentioned, the water is like one quantity. It cannot be add water to dirt, and it cannot goes out. It only can transform from one state to another. And I think we should really discuss our technologies about, for example, these schist gases. They are really bad technology, and they are poisoning the water. And also another thing is about the weather manipulation, that there is official government information that we can check actually how many artificial rain is created on a square meter per liter, for example. And the changes we are going to experience are just coming, and we don't know what is going to happen.
Yes, this is a very controversial topic, but it is true. There is definitely water manipulation for many decades now. There have been patents on this in America since the 50s. So it is an area that governments definitely are doing more of than they're telling us. But whether it's this kind of climate control or natural climate change, there are things that we can do on our own properties to help our properties thrive. So let's check some of the other things here. You guys covered a lot of material. So fresh water is an extremely limited resource on our planet. It's only 3% of the total water on our Earth. And what's even more important, and we can't access all of that fresh water because most of that is trapped in ice and underground more than 750 meters deep. Only 0.375%.
So how will you define the fresh water?
Fresh water is water that's available for us to use, for example, for drinking water or watering plants, this kind of thing. So, yeah. So, it's not ocean, not salt water.
Yeah.
Yes, not salt. And just like some people have mentioned, fresh water, it's decreasing. At the same time, our use of it is increasing. There's going to be a problem. And many of us have already experienced this problem. There are times when they tell you not to water your garden, or you don't have water coming from your tap. And various places around the world, people have experienced this.
Even you experienced the last summer.
Yes, I have had several days with no water.
Besides Danube,
yes, next to the Danube. But yes, in France, Italy, the whole river is dried up. So it can cause very big problems. And then what do people usually do as the first solution to have a problem? They dig, you know, a well. They will take the water out of the ground. The only problem is there's a limited supply of groundwater, and the water that's in the ground, it's not just for, you know, their water, it's the whole entire community's water. But once it's used up, then you have no more choices. So then another reason to do the water resource management is because there's climate change, whether it's government controlled or natural. We do have it, and we get things like, for example, in Hungary, we actually have more rain every year than the previous year, but it seems like less. If you ask anyone on the street, you think that it's less rain. And why is that? Because we have up to 8 or 10 weeks of no rain. So, and when is this? During the prime growing season. It's at the worst time. So you have to do something to make the water available at the right time. And what is, you know, modern society? How does it deal with this? Not at all. In fact, they contribute to this problem because what they do is do the perfect drain control. Everybody wants, you know, the rainwater moved to the sea as quickly as possible with the perfect drains running off the rooftops. It's all disappearing. They don't want it on the street, you know, no floating cars or anything. They don't think about another solution. They just channel all the water as quickly as possible to the sea. So we have very little infiltration into the ground where we could refill the aquifer. And what other things do? They cut out the forests. Okay, so let's see. How does nature store water? Okay, let's see if you guys can come up with top 3 things. How nature stores water.
We have the underground and groundwater like caves,
Yes.
and lakes and ponds,
Yes.
topsoil and plants.
Yes, actually, this is a very good point that they separated the groundwater and in the soil, because that's 2 different things. So there are underground reservoirs, but there's also massive storage of water in the soil. You can, generally speaking, on your own property, the most water you can store is actually in your soil. If you increase some things that we will talk about later, actually, then you can increase the amount of water you can store in the soil. So, great. Okay. Next. Ice. Yes, that's true. That is certainly the case. And that's a great answer. But unfortunately, it's water that we can't really make use of too easily.
So we thought about like in short term, it's stored through like condensation in the sky, like it's actually like condensated and then moved into some place, and then ice and lakes.
Yes, yeah, that's great. And the condensation is also part of something else. So I just want to see if somebody else names it before I give the answer. But you're certainly correct. Okay. Next. Yes, the clouds. That's very true. Yeah, so in the atmosphere, in the clouds.
Lakes, water source, and springs.
Yes. Excellent. Okay.
We thought of the same. Lake, soil, and underground caves.
Okay.
And the swamps, maybe swamps and wetlands, but it's
Swamps and wetlands, yes.
It's basically
Yes.
like connected to the soil.
Okay.
Everything was safe, I think, except leaves.
Yeah. Like it's
And
important.
plants.
And plants.
Okay, this was
Biosphere.
yes.
It was
yes.
mentioned.
Okay.
Plants, no?
That's excellent. Yeah, plants actually are a huge store of water themselves. So let's see. So some of the things I didn't mention the ice, but ponds, lakes. This is surface water basically. So what we can see right away with our eyes if you walk around, ground, soil, groundwater. But plants, if you see a forest, you're seeing a huge storage of water. The trees themselves, they transpire, they create humidity in the air, and it's on a massive scale. So they create their own microclimate.
May I add something to it?
Yes.
In Czech we learned like sentence that in a forest it rains twice.
Yes,
So it means, would you like to explain?
yes, this is actually so true. For example, if you think about where most of our water is stored in the oceans, when there's evaporation, it goes into the atmosphere in the clouds. And you would think that, okay, now this can travel the Earth. It's true, but it has a finite limit. It can travel about 500 kilometers. And if you live on a continent that is bigger than 500 kilometers, then this water will not reach the internal parts of the continent, except if there is continuous forest cover, because the forests will transpire enough moisture into the air to create a new set of clouds that can then travel farther. And actually, you may have seen sometimes if there's a summer rain where there's a rain and within half an hour you will see new clouds forming from the forest tops. So that's how the rain can travel into the inside of a large continent landmass. So it's very true. It can cause rain. And actually it's way beyond that. There's a great book called The Secret Lives of Trees.
Yes.
That's a great book. I recommend it to anyone. You will find out exactly how trees contribute to making rain. Actually, without trees, we can't have rain. It's, yeah, The Secret Lives of Trees, or Life of Trees. What? I don't know. So, yeah, it's amazing. And then, just also to cover a similar topic, for example, you know, people in the past, they used to do like the rain dance. And when they would do that, they would basically kind of do the role of the tree, which is to eject particle matter into the atmosphere, dust, that can then allow the moisture in the air to condense and form water droplets. So they actually were making rain with their rain dance, for real.
Like this
Maybe may I add also the, because thank you for mentioning that the rain can travel thanks to the forest, but I think this sentence is more also about when it's the heavy rain, it's like the soil can stack just some of it and then it will go away on the surface. But the trees, like when it has a bigger cover on the land, it can like catch the water and store it for later. So it's like it will rain, but on the leaves it's catched and it's falling slowly down, and it can have a longer time to go to the underground. So it's like slows the water cycle. So it's also important.
It's totally correct. The tree itself just not just slows down the water's path, but it also absorbs some of it and then it transpires it. So yes. So that's great. Okay. So now, how can we increase the amount of fresh water on our property? So instead of writing it, so I'm just going to go around, and if you think of an answer, then just tell me your top answer. Okay, and I'm going to start on this side first. Okay, so if you want to talk for like 20, 30 seconds.
It comes from the answers we already talked about. It's like increasing the amount of trees, so they can hold some moisture. Also.
Okay, one answer so to give a chance to other people. So the trees, increase the amount of trees.
I like trees.
Great. Yeah. Okay.
I wanted just to add, for example, it is good idea to redesign the canalization system of your property. For example, if you're using chemicals like soap, toothpaste and so on, it cannot go that way, but if you are creating these things by your own with natural products, you can produce toothpaste, soap and dishwash liquid only with natural sources.
Yes.
And so when the canalization, you put all the water in the canalization, there are plants that can purify the water, and this water can go in your garden.
Yes, great. Okay, so that's what we call the gray water. We use the gray water.
What about the technology? I mean, we have some machines that they can clear the water. Is this correct or not?
We have some technological solutions to cleaning the water, but we can have also natural solutions that don't rely on technology, and they are just as good.
But even better.
Why
They are even actually.
Why we do not need to rely on technologies?
Because the natural solutions are available to use for free or very low cost, and they.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point. Yes. Okay.
It's energy efficient.
Yes.
You don't need to rely on energy.
Many of the technology solutions, not only do they have an upfront cost, but they have a hidden cost because the materials and the processes are either poisonous or they take they have to be mined. They have all these added costs that are usually not reflected in the price. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Building a boat.
building a boat?
A pond.
A pond. Sorry. Yes. That's.
Prepare for the great flood.
No, it's coming.
Well, you can have a boat on the pond.
Yes, please.
Miniature.
We store and use the rainwater.
Yes, rainwater storage. Great.
Use the charcoal.
Yeah.
As a sponge.
Using mulch on the ground to keep the humidity.
Yes, this actually is all both they're related to the same thing. So it's improving this water holding capacity of our soil.
We don't have any other.
Okay. Do you have anyone that's different? Okay. Yes. Okay. So let's see. So we do what nature does, and we store more water in the ground, plants, surface water, and the air. And then we do this through increasing the organic matter, the water holding capacity of the soil. We can use earthworks, for example, the canal system, such as swales, contours, pits, and dams, to hold water that's surface water that flows away otherwise. And this is also related to the canals. Proper selection of plants. For example, if we can place plants in areas where they otherwise would not survive. For example, if it's a dry area, then we pick the appropriate plants that don't need that much water, but they will start to create organic matter that we can then use to improve the soil. They will already provide shade for other plants. Their organic matter will actually feed other plants and help them grow. So it starts a cycle. And increase the density of the plants. So if we provide more trees, then there will be more shade, cooler temperatures, less evaporation, less transpiration. As the plants increase, they will also transpire and create more humidity in the air. And it will create a microclimate, locally on your property. And the plants also help with erosion, and it's not just that, okay, now the topsoil won't leave my property, but that won't go into the water system, and it won't create algae blooms in the ocean. It also will not increase the absorption rate of the sun's rays. It won't be muddy water, it will be clear water. So it's beneficial on multiple levels. And then mulch is another great thing. And of course we can use biochar as well to improve the porousness of the soil, because it will attract a lot of soil life. Let's see. Yes, and the rainwater and gray water storage are two other things as well. And that's where we're going to concentrate on for our ponds. So, okay, how can we store rainwater and gray water? Let's just hear some answers. So, what do you think? You can choose the ponds, okay. Storage system. Yes. Tanks, right? Okay, storage. Ponds, yeah. Okay, so we can maximize the time the water spends on our property. We can use storage tanks. They can be either above or below the ground, and made of a variety of usually man-made materials like plastics, metals, or
like the IBC containers we were talking about,
yes.
That I use in my garden. That's a good one. Or like under the ground is the cistern, the cisterna.
yes.
Okay, you know that.
Yes.
I think probably a lot of you have, or your grandparents' parents in their garden one, because in old times they used a lot.
And
it's
then,
coming back, actually.
yes.
They started to use it again.
Yes. And you can actually convert an old septic tank to a water storage tank. You just have to clean it out. If you leave it for maybe 2 or 3 years, then it's not dirty anymore, and you can just clean it out and put the stuff onto your garden and then store water in it. And then we have the ponds, lakes, springs, rivers, and streams. So now, why would we want to store water in a pond versus a storage tank?
Wildlife.
Yes.
Insect, birds, habitat.
Okay, great habitat for wildlife. Okay. Somebody else?
For plants, for bugs, for insects.
This is what he said.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, some more habitat. So
The answer is already
I don't know how this happened, but whatever. So you can see the answers there now. Yeah, there are a lot of reasons. It creates more edge. I'm sure Enchi mentioned the edge to you. It's very important in a forest garden or any kind of place where you want to increase the biodiversity and habitat for wildlife, also for creating microclimates, and you can use it to increase the storage capacity of plants and other things like that. We can the ponds itself will create a beneficial microclimate. So, for example, it will cool in the summer and heat in the winter. So it moderates the temperature. It can be used for something that's called living water, when it's something that's biologically active. When you water with that water, it's different than when you water with your tap water that has all sorts of chemicals in it. It has organic matter, especially if you have wildlife in it, not just plants, and you can use old methods of keeping your plants watered. So you can do the flood irrigation. You have to plan the pond placement appropriately, and it can be used for aquaculture, floating beds, and this is actually might be something that is surprising. I was very surprised to learn this, that it's the most efficient way to create soil. So topsoil, many people know, to create like this much soil takes, crazy amount of years. But in a pond or other areas, marshes, similar water-laden areas, topsoil creation is extremely fast. You get tons of particulate matter from the atmosphere together with rain falling into it. The plants usually grow extremely fast in the water, and as they break down through the help of bacteria, they just will, if you do not maintain the pond, it will fill up and you can't use it anymore. So you definitely need to think about pond maintenance if you will create one. But it's great. You don't have to think about it as like, oh, this is something that I have to do and what a big problem. It's like, great, I'm getting more free soil. So, okay, let's see. Okay, there's definitely some things to consider before you build a pond. So let's see. I'm not going to go to the next slide. So let's see if you can give me some answers of what you would consider before building a pond. Okay. Okay. Yes, where to the pond's location?
Yeah, positioning. I was going to say.
Okay. It's the depth of the pond. Okay, and the soil. Okay, how are you're going to dig it out?
The wildlife that is around, so you can host in it maybe, and what plants you are going to put around it, so you can host wildlife. So you don't want to attract some things that you don't want in your garden maybe.
If it's under the sun or under the shade.
Okay, that's related to the placement. So if you want to be careful to not have the pond evaporate very quickly. Yes.
I mean, like canalization or electricity or underground water?
Yes, things that are in the ground. You don't want to dig up the gas pipe or something like that. Yeah, that's definitely true.
Maybe if there is an elevation or decrease in the land, it's straight or not. So.
Okay, yes. The physical surroundings of the pond. Yeah.
Maybe to make exits for the extra water to not be overflowed.
Yes, the overflow of the pond, definitely. Okay.
And with the soil, it would be like also the consideration of the soil, like if it can hold the water. Is there some like soil that can hold the water by itself?
Yes. Okay. What if you can have a natural pond using just the soil on your property, and also in another perspective, so related to the incline or so the contour of the land. You want to make sure you don't make a pond that will then create a hazard. So like it will break and then flow and flood somebody. So, but one of the first things, and it's kind of interesting, nobody thought of this, is are you allowed to build a pond there? So the permission for the pond. Okay, so do you need a special permission, or can you just decide and then build it? In some places you can, you decide. In some places they're very strict and you have to get special permission. So you have to find out.
For example, what places? You mean like natural reservations or?
Or in a city, if you have a garden in the city, then there might be a limit to the size of the pond you can make. So your neighbor might be afraid that you will get mosquitoes, and then they will report you. So you have to make sure that you can do it. And if you can't, then try to get permission for it. So, but in many areas, especially in urban areas, and I would say most of the like Anglo-Saxon type of countries, or countries with laws similar to them, they have very high permitting requirements. So you have to be careful. Okay, so another thing is the surface area and depth and volume of the pond. You have to think about this when you're planning it. So how much space should the pond take up? How deep do you want it? And how much water will it store? That will help you, for example, find out or calculate how much rainwater you will need before the pond fills it up. Because it might take, 1 or 2 heavy rains, or if you make it very big and you don't have a large storage area, then you might wait 3 or 4 years before the pond fills up. So you have to take this into consideration. The placement of the pond also, for example, related to shading. Don't put it next to your neighbor's property line or other things like that. Another consideration for placement is if you have a property with incline or decline, then you live on a hill. The higher you catch the water, the higher area you store the water, the less energy you will need to be able to lead that water wherever you need it. So if you live on a hill and you store it at the bottom, you will need a pump to bring the water up. But if you store it at the top, then you just let the gravity work for free. So then the material, if the soil is good enough, almost any type of soil except sandy soil can be used to create a natural pond, but there are limitations. Unless you have a very high level of clay in your soil, then you will need to, even with a high level of clay, you will still need to make a relatively shallow. It doesn't need to be shallow, but the edges of the pond cannot be steep. They have to be a low decline, because even clay, if it's wet, it will start to slide down, and then you will lose the sealing ability of the pond. So if you have sandy soil, then you can do one of 2 things. Or several things. You can add clay to it. You will need a lot of clay, but maybe your next door neighbor has a vein running through their yard and they will be happy to give it to you. Another thing is called gley. It sounds similar, but it's completely different. This is actually an organic material. Most of the time they use cattle manure. It's very fresh green cattle manure. They will spread it in the area that you want to seal. Actually, if you have like a leaky pond or a leaky dam, you can use it to seal it as well. You have to put a pretty good amount of it and spread it all around. Then you have to cover it. You can cover it with soil or clay. You can cover it with carpet or some plastic sheeting. You have to create an anaerobic environment, so oxygen-free. That will start a fermentation process, and the bacteria, there will be like a bacterial slime that forms in this place. and that will create like a sludge or slime, and that will seal the area. So with like very high sand content, you might need more than this, but in most places it should work.
So for how long approximately should be covered like this? So
It's a good question. It depends on the temperature.
Of course.
You have to let it ferment. So in colder areas, it can be maybe 2 weeks. In a very hot time, it could be 1 to 2 days.
So you need to uncover the place afterwards, or you can leave it?
No, once it ferments, then you have to add the water and remove the covering materials, except if they're natural materials, then you can leave it there. So, and then of course there's concrete. You can make concrete pond. It's completely possible. It's just like, for example, like a mine pond, where they mine the rock out, and it can be totally natural, just the same. It's concrete, even though it's part of our industrial process, but it's at the end of the day, it's made out of rock, so it can be used. And then there's liner plastic or metal containers. So if you have like an herb spiral, you might have heard of such a thing. You can make a little basin, and dig that into the ground and create a tiny, small pond and have a few plants in there. It's completely doable, so you can use small containers to make ponds. They even sell these little plastic molded ponds that you can buy in a garden shop or something. And then other things to consider is, what do you want to use this pond for? So maybe you just want to use it for watering something and you don't care about biodiversity or anything like that. Then of course you will plan the pond differently. Then you can make it like a pool or something, or a cistern-like pond. But you might say that I want to farm fish in it. Then it's a different plan. If you want to use it for swimming and wildlife, then you make it like a natural pond or swimming pond. Plant and animal life. So if you want to make it a living ecosystem, you have to consider the plants. Animals, some people say, I only want plants in there. I'm going to tell you, that will probably last at most 1 or 2 seasons, because the animals will move in. You might even get fish in there, even if you are, not directly next to a stream or a pond, because the birds will bring the fish eggs either stuck to their feet, or sometimes a few of the fish eggs can survive if they have eaten it, and then if they, they poop in your water. So I have heard many stories where people are like, where is this fish from in my pond? But it's there. You don't have to put it there. You can, of course, if you want, but there are definitely cases where the fish just magically appear. And then, of course, you have to consider, how will I fill this pond, and what will I do with the water once the pond is filled? So it will overflow. You have to think about what to do with the remaining water, or the added water. Okay, so what kind of plants to use? And I just want to tell everybody, don't go crazy. I should have said this at the beginning. Don't go crazy with notes, because I will share the slides with the Facebook group that you guys are in. So, okay. I'm just going to read a couple of these really quick, but mostly just cover. There's two types of plants to use in the pond. One of them is basically a plant that can thrive in the pond or water type environment, but it doesn't contribute to the pond, for example, in the form of cleaning it. And then there's a type of plant that actually cleans the water in the pond. So the top part is the part that cleans the pond, and out of the top part you should choose about 70 to 80% of the plants should be from that part.
From the top?
From the top. And the bottom is the rest of the plants. You can assemble those however you like. Some of them have other functions that are listed here. A few of them cannot tolerate the cold weather, but they're all mentioned. So most of the times people use cattails. If you use the cattail with the liner, you have to be careful to get the dwarf variety, because the full-size cattail, it will have very deep roots. Eventually it will destroy your liner. So like 12 years or something, then you can plan for ripping everything out and doing it again. So you have to think about these things. And then it's usually all similar types of these marshland or wetlands type plants, where people make baskets out of them or something like that. There's a different variety. There's also the kanna. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that type of plant. It's like the flowering plant with big leaves, kind of similar to a banana. But unfortunately most of that can't be grown here, although in Greece and Bulgaria maybe you might be able to grow it there. So
Which one we grow?
the kanna.
Bigger bananas.
Kanna.
No.
Kanna.
What's it called?
Kanna, it's called kanna lily. Yeah. It's not a lily. It's just called kanna lily, but it's not the lily. So anyway, I have the botanical name, so you can look up in the Wikipedia.
That's better because it's universal. So.
Yes, and then some of the wetland plants like the blueberries, cranberries, they enjoy this wet. The irises, also the aronia. Do you know the aronia berry? That likes it. The horsetail, the lotus plant, the taro. So there's a pretty big variety. There's many more plants than these, but these are the common ones that people use for their ponds. And then there's an issue though. If you want to use plants to clean your water, there's a problem that the plants over there are mostly partially cold tolerant. So if you have deep freezes, like maybe -5 or -10 or even greater, then the plant will it will dry up and go back into the roots. It will basically go into hibernation, and it will still survive, but it will not do its job. So what can you do in that case? You can divert your gray water or rainwater to the gray water back into the canal, or the rainwater you can spread it somewhere else in your yard, or you can use the cold resistant plants. And this is one that I discovered. It's not in any of the books. I was just looking around at plant lists and I found one that is actually one of these grass type plants that grows in the marsh. It actually grows in a lot of places, but it's usually not found in the stores. You have to find it, and if you go to Wikipedia, you can find it, and you have to identify it in the wild somewhere and get that plant. It survives in the winter. It remains green and will photosynthesize and clean your water even then. Yeah, so okay, this is just an illustration of what very intense ponds might look like. They have a little water feature, waterfall. It's quite nice. It's this kind of planting usually takes several years to accomplish, but and the guy is a pro. So grayland wetlands. is basically an illustration of an example of how you can create a grayland wetland that is separate from your pond, because maybe you don't have enough space in that area where you want the pond. Maybe you want to use it for swimming, but you still would want to have the clean water naturally without any chemicals. So then you can make a separate wetland area and channel the water between them, and you can cycle it through the wetland area. And this gives a description of how you can make mosquito-free wetland. For the most part, you have to raise either pebbles, that you use, river rocks, just raise it above the water line, or you can add some topsoil. The wetland plants will still grow there, but then there will be no free water for the mosquitoes to use. And this is just one example that you can use. You can do it with a liner or any of the other methods that you use for a pond. And then this is an illustration of a pond that is very nicely designed. Most of the ponds that people make in their backyards, they have these very artificial type of edges. And here you can see you don't have to create it that way. You can create a nice natural type of edge where, for example, if you have birds or other animals, they can come and drink from the water. They will not fall in and drown, or it looks very nice. And here, one more thing about the plants. You also should consider the variety of plants, where some can be floating plants, some with deep roots or shallow roots, where some of them can be completely exposed to the water all the time. Some of them just need the wet soil. So those are all considerations. And then this is one of the things I mentioned of what you can do with the pond. It's a chinampa.
We cannot see.
Sorry. It's a chinampa. And this is an ancient Aztec type of raised garden bed located in the pond. Actually, they built their capital city completely surrounded by the chinampas, and it was covering a huge area of a gigantic lake. So you can scale this up or down regardless of the size of the pond area. It's extremely fertile and self-watering. It basically covers the entire organic and water cycle for all the plants and animals, and has huge biodiversity. So I think this is the last slide. Yeah. So do you guys have any questions related to this?
How can we do such a chinampa?
You can look at this in the illustration, but basically you have to create a cordoned area where that will hold the soil. You plant the most of the time they use some kind of tree or shrub that's permanently there, so a perennial that will anchor that once the posts or thatch that they use to hold the soil in will rot.
For example, willows?
Yes. So you definitely need to make, yes. These are, you can see the trees here on the edge. This is like right there. Where's the mouse? It's hard to do it this way. Okay, here and here. So you have to consider some way to make the soil stay there and for long term. But you can, I mean, it takes maintenance. They didn't, just build it and then it stayed there forever. They were, every year they were maintaining it. They created, the thatching from the the grass type of plants, and then they laid it down on the side, and every year they improved it. And also, as I mentioned before, with the water environment being the best soil creation, so in these areas right here, they would always fill up with more and more soil. They would dig that out and put it on here, and that is like the richest, the best soil they could use. And maybe dig a few fish in there, and you don't need to worry about anything. You can grow almost anything you like.
So it can be also used like a compost, that they just throw the compost into the water and then they get out after?
They could do that too. The compost will break down in the water most quickly, but I think they could also just, this is always wet soil, so they can just leave it on the soil too, and that will break it down as well. You know, they don't really want to work twice, you know, to put it in the water and then take it out. So they can just put it in the soil.
Do you have like a
Wait, sorry.
I wanted to ask, in the most ponds that we see, it's not just a hole in the ground, it's different layers of ground base. That's a good practice because we want to grow different kind of plants there? Or is there any other reason to not make it even?
Okay, yes. So this is one thing I wanted to cover, but I forgot. So most of the time when you plan a pond, you should create different depths. And the creation of different depths will create separate temperature layers. And these will help to mix the water, and it will help with the oxygenation and keeping the water circulating, so that if you do it right, then you need little or no other form of mechanical water circulation to keep it fresh and clear.
Another question. Do you need to read or layer on bottom so the soil doesn't go underneath, or is the soil like mulch type so it floats?
Here it seems like it's floating, but as you can see, maybe that's how they started to build it at the beginning, but over the years it just added up and eventually it contacted. If I would make it, I would actually make it reach all the way to the bottom, because then you won't get any surprises of collapse, sudden collapse. So, yeah. Yes.
Like if you want to create the grey water cleaner, let's say, or for like the purposes of cleaning the water, is there like a minimum size for, let's say, a little family, like I don't know, of 4 people? Like I just don't know how big it should be if I want to like really gain like.
This is a good question. It depends on whether you only want to use it for the gray water or maybe also for the rainwater from your roof, because a lot of times that could, the roof water could be filled with contaminants either from the roof material or the from the atmosphere that gets blown over there, bird poops, some similar things. You have, if it's just for the family gray water, then you also should think about how much water you use. Typically, I think for like family of 4, maybe like 12 square meters is enough. And then the general rule for gray water to match a pond, it should be from 1/3 to 1/2 of the surface area of the pond. So, yes. So if you have a pond as well and you want to clean the water from the pond as well in the gray water area, then the gray water area, wetland area, should be about 1/3 to 1/2 of the size of the surface area of the pond. Okay?
I still don't get it.
So you have a 10 square meter pond. Then your wetland should be 3 to 5 square meters. Okay? So 1/3 to 1/2 the size of the surface area of the pond.
And circulate the water between the...
And yes, and you have to circulate the water between them. But you can have the wetland area as part of the pond. It will take more maintenance because the plants will try to grow into the pond fully. So you have to think about all these things. So what you have time for, and then not just what you have time for now, but what will you have time for in 2, 5 years, 10 years. So
to be able to be lazy gardener.
Yes, yes, yes. So.
Got it.
But if it's in the pond, then if you don't have electricity, then you don't have to worry because the plants will clear the water anyway. So it's a trade-off. You have to decide.
Is there some source of material you would recommend to look while or before to creating chinampa or pond?
Like books?
Yes, there are
like
a few.
Yeah, books or like even like websites.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I will try to get a source of materials that you can use for these topics, and I will send them to Orshi so she can share it with your group. Maybe after the camp is finished, but I promise I will send it to her and she can share it with you. So you're welcome.
Okay guys, so just to clarify it, we are gonna send all the information like my presentation pictures and this presentation, and we collect some sources for you, and it's all gonna be in the Facebook group, okay? But after the camp, okay? Because we don't have time for it now. So a couple of things, because in the afternoon it's all gonna be working, so no more presentation or staying here anymore during the camp. That was the last one. We will just work, okay? And do some stuff outside. Yay! Okay, so in the afternoon, in the afternoon, we will have workshops, and because I think we shouldn't waste time with that time, we should decide the workshops now. We all will go to the other side to let you know how to build the raised beds and what we are gonna use. But when the work starts, we will divide into 3 groups. Okay? So everyone will get the knowledge and will see, but not everyone is gonna do it, because because if we can finish all this work, and I think it's pretty doable because we are a lot of people, then tomorrow hopefully we will have a little bit different day, which is gonna be more free and more fun. We are organizing it, hopefully it can happen, and we don't need to work on this stuff anymore. Is everyone happy with that? Okay, so the 3 groups. We will need approximately 10 people for the first one, and Abel is gonna lead that, okay? He's gonna lead that. So the first one is gonna be here, down there. We are gonna clean up the forest, the branches that we cut. Everything needs to be in different piles, and we also use machines, different machines like electric chainsaw, and also like we are gonna make small mulch from the machine that cuts the branches to very small pieces. So the people will clean up the forest there, make different piles for firewood and for mulch, and for the big trees are gonna stay there in one line, so we can use it as a building material later on if people need it. And once it's cleaned up, you guys who are gonna be in that workshop will build a strawberry garden. So the strawberries that we have, we are gonna plant as an undercover layer in the forest garden, and you will do it in where the chickens were, because the soil, as we checked, is great. Okay, so it can spread afterwards everywhere. So, but what we have plants, you will prepare the nice bed for it, and then you are gonna plant it with some other plants. Okay, companion plants. You will see later. So that's gonna be one group's job, 10 people. The other one is more like a little bit creative, and we only need 3 people. So here, where we wash our hands, here, we are gonna make around the trees a nice flower garden. You will need to bring a bucket or 2 buckets of manure from the other side, and you will plant the flowers and raspberry here. Also, we have 2 more sour cherry, and also on this side you will plant those 2 sour cherry trees, and that's gonna be 3 people's job. Okay, that's the other team. And the third team is gonna be on the other side, so that's gonna be the biggest group. We are gonna be there with you, and we are gonna build the raised beds, and we are gonna clean the forest there as well, and we are gonna finish the fencing around the trees that we planted yesterday, and the willow fence. So that's gonna be like probably, hopefully 15 or more people.
Okay.
Yes.
So we all are going to
listen
about
the
raised
bed.
beds.
So
Yes.
nobody is gonna miss it. Okay, so everyone will get the knowledge how to do it, and you will be able to see like what we are gonna use, and everyone is gonna work on different things. So yeah, if you choose another thing to do. So now think about it in a couple of seconds, and then I would like to ask to raise your hand if you would like to be in group fun. 1, 2. Please keep your hands up. Yes. Okay, let's see how many people are gonna do the second one. Second one, who wanna do the flower garden? 1, 2. Amazing, that's good because we need only 1 more. 3. Perfect. Okay, so we have that group. And the raised beds, I guess everyone has, okay? Raised beds. Okay, that's no problem, because what we are gonna do then, so we will divide, because both groups here and there will start with the cleaning the forest. Okay? So we don't do anything else, only except those 3 people, okay? But everyone else will, and then we share the exact amount of people to work the cleaning the forest here and there, and then you can come and do the other job over there, or you can finish the mulching and you can carry on with the help to Abel. Okay, sounds good?
Yeah.
Yes. Amazing. Now lunchtime, and let's meet here at 3. Okay, thank you.